Hey everyone, welcome to part 56 of my Pokemon game series in Unity. So in this video, we'll implement using items from Battle. So from the Battle, if I choose back, it'll take us to the inventory UI, and from here I can use an item. So if I use a potion on my Charmander, that'll heal my HP, and we'll continue the battle as usual. So we'll implement this. Special thanks to all my Patreons for making this series possible. By becoming a Patreon, you can support me and get access to the complete project files of the series. The project files also contain some advanced features that are not covered on YouTube. So let's start the video. So let's look at how to use items from Battle. So for that, we need to add the inventory UI into our battle system. So first let me turn the inventory UI into a prefab. So I'll drag the inventory UI to in order to make the inventory UI a prefab, first we have to go inside the UI canvas prefab, and now we can drag the inventory UI here and it'll turn it into a prefab. So now let's go ahead and add this into our battle system. So under the battle system we have the battle canvas and I want to add it here. So first I'll go inside the essential objects prefab and I'll add the inventory UI to the battle canvas. Okay, so right now it's below all the other objects. So I want this to be above the party screen so that when the party screen is shown, it will be shown on top of the inventory UI. And I want the dialog box to be below everything so that the dialogs will be shown on top. So next in the inventory UI, we need to assign this party screen. So let me go ahead and do that. All right. And finally, I'll just make this inactive by default. We only want to open it when the player selects bag from the action selection menu. So let's go to the battle system script and do that. All right, let me open up my battle system script. And in here, first we need a reference to the inventory UI. So let me create a serialized field for that. All right. So next in the handle action selection, from here, when the player selects the bag, right now we are just calling the run turns with the action as use item, which will simply just throw a Pokeball. So we did that for testing Pokeballs, but we don't want that anymore. Now, when the user selects the bag, we want to open the inventory UI, right? So I'll create a function called open bag. Okay, so in this function, we need to open the inventory UI. So I'll say inventory UI dot game object dot set active true. All right, so next we need to set the state to bag so that if the state is bag, then we can give the control to the inventory UI. So first I need to create a battle state called bag over here. So here I'll create a state called bag, and in the open bag function, I'll set the state to battle state.bag. All right, so let's call this function when the user selects the bag. So I'm just going to remove this and I'll call the open bag function. So next in the handle update of the battle system, if the state is bag, then we should give the control to the inventory UI, right? So here I'll add another else if condition and I'll check if the state is bag. All right. And if that's the case, I'll just call inventory UI dot handle update to give the control to the inventory UI. So to this function, we need to pass an action called onBack. So let's create an action called onBack. Okay. So in this function, we need to specify what should happen when the inventory UI is closed by pressing X. So in that case, we just want to deactivate the inventory UI. So I'll say inventory UI.gameObject.set active false, and I'll set the state back to action selection so that the player can select other actions. Okay, and let's just pass this action to the handle update function. So now we should be able to open the inventory UI from the battle. So let's go to Unity and test this. So before we test, first we need to assign the inventory UI reference to the battle system script. So let me do that. Okay, so now let's test, and I'll just start a battle. Okay, so now if we select bag, okay, we have this issue. Actually, we don't want to show the battle dialog box on top of the inventory UI. We are using the other dialog box for it, right? So let me go ahead and change that. So I'll go inside the essential objects, and I'll put the battle dialog box above the inventory UI. Okay, so that should solve the problem. So let me go ahead and start a battle. Okay, so now if I select the bag, you can see that it opens our inventory UI, and we can select different items from here. So if you press X, we'll go back to the action selection and we can select an action. Okay, so first let me try to take some damage, and after that we can try testing our potion. Okay, so Charmander has taken some damage right now. So now I'll try to use the potion. So if I use the potion on Charmander, you can see that it restores the HP. Okay, so now I can go back by pressing X. But we have two issues now. The first issue is after using the item, I still have my turn. So I can still go ahead and attack or use another item. So we should handle this. And the second issue is even though we use the potion and restored the HP of the Charmander, the change is still not reflected over here. Okay, so if you go to the party screen, you can see that the change is reflected here, but it's not reflected in the HUD. So what we have to do is in the HUD, we have to use observer pattern to update the HP, just like we do in the party screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So first let's check how we are setting the HP right now. So if you go inside the run move function, okay, so here after Pokemon takes a damage, we are calling a function called update HP in order to update the HP. Okay, so inside this function, we are using a boolean called HP changed, and this boolean will be set whenever we change the HP. So now we don't want to use this approach anymore. Instead, we want to subscribe to the onHP changed event, and we can call the update HP function when the onHP changed event is triggered. Okay, so we can go to the Pokemon script and we can just remove the onHP changed boolean. So instead of this, we'll be using the onHP changed event. So once we remove the boolean, we'll have few errors. So we can go ahead and remove these lines. We don't need that anymore. Okay. So next in the battle HUD, we don't need to check for this condition. This function will only be called when the HP is changed. So we can just remove that. So now let's subscribe to the onHP changed event. All right, so here, just like we do for the on status chain, we can also subscribe to the on HP changed event. Okay, and when that's fired, we want to call the update HP function, right? But one problem is this function is actually a coroutine, so we should put it inside a start coroutine function so we can't directly attach it to the event. So what I'll do is I'll just rename this to something like update HP async. Okay, I named it async because coroutines are asynchronous. And here I'll create another function called update HP. Okay, so from this function, I'll simply call the update HP async coroutine. All right, so now since this is a normal function, we can directly attach it to the on HP change event. So I'll attach it here. All right, so now whenever the Pokemon's HP change, the update HP function will be called. Okay, so before we test this, let's also do some cleanup. So the set data function, it'll be called multiple times in a battle. So whenever we switch a Pokemon, we'll change the Pokemon that's shown in the HUD, right? So whenever we switch, we'll call the set data function and the Pokemon will change. So the problem is when we change the Pokemon in the HUD, these events will still be attached to the old Pokemon also. Okay. So to fix this, what we can do is in the set data, if the current Pokemon that's shown in the HUD is not null, then we want to unsubscribe these events from the current Pokemon, right? We are going to switch that Pokemon and we are no longer interested in that Pokemon's event. We only want to know the events of the new Pokemon. So to unsubscribe, it's actually pretty similar to how we subscribe. So instead of plus equal to, we have to use minus equal to. And this will unsubscribe the update HP function from the on HP changed event. So let's also do that for the on status chain. This is something that I missed to do while implementing on status chain. All right. So now the HP will be updated automatically. So we don't have to manually call these functions from the battle system. So I'm just going to comment these lines. So if you're following along, just comment these lines for now. Don't actually remove it. We'll get back to these lines really soon. So let's also look at other places from which we are calling update HP async. So there is one over here inside run after turn. So let me comment that. And there is also one here which is executed before the move. So let me comment that also. So now let's go to Unity and test if this is working. So let me go ahead and start a battle. Okay. So let me take some damage so that we can heal it using potion. All right. So yeah, here if you noticed, we have a small issue. The Bulbasaur actually attacked me before the HP bar animation was complete. So we'll get back to that issue. But first, let's check if the HP in the HUD is updated when we use an item. So I'll go to my bag and use the potion. All right. So now if I go back, you can see that the HP change is updated in the HUD. So our on HP changed event is working properly and it's automatically updating the HP in our HUD. So now let's look at the other issue that we have. So if I attack the Bulbasaur, so here you can see before its HP updation is complete, we are showing other messages like critical hit and the message of the next attack and all that. So we're not waiting for the HP bar to complete. So this is a problem when we use the observer pattern. Since the HP is automatically updated by our events, we don't have full control over it and we can't wait for it to complete. So let's look at how to fix this. So until now, we were calling the update HP function directly. So we could wait for the updation to complete before we do anything else, right? So now we need some other way of knowing if the HP updation is complete or not. So to solve that, what I'll do is inside our HP bar script, let me remove the scripts that I don't need. So inside the HP bar script, I'll create a Boolean property called is updating. Okay, so I'll set this property to true at the start of the set HP smooth coroutine. So here I'll set it to true, and at the end I'll set it to false. Alright, so we can use the value of this property to check if the HP updation is complete or not. So to make things easy, I'll create another function inside BattleHUD. So this function will be a coroutine and I'll call it something like wait for HP update. Okay, so in this function, we can use the wait until coroutine to wait until the HP update is complete. So once it's complete, the value of is updating will be false, right? So in here, I'll use a lambda and I'll check if HP bar dot is updating equal to false. So this coroutine will wait until is updating is false. So now we can call this coroutine from the battle system to wait for the HP update. So here, let me just remove the comment. So this is the reason why I asked you not to remove it, just comment it earlier. So now we can just call HUD dot wait for HP update. Okay, so let's also change this in other places. So here, it's actually called on the source unit. So instead of this, I'll call wait for HP update. And finally, it's also called from the run after turn. So let me also change that there. Alright, so now the HP updation should work like before. It should wait until the HP updation is complete. So let's test that. Okay, so let me just do some attack. Okay, we are waiting until the HP updation is complete. So yeah, you can see it's working like before. And let's also try using the potion once again. Okay, I used it on my Charmander. The HP is restored and the change is also reflected over here. Okay, so that's working fine. So now let's fix the next issue that we have. So once we use the item, our turn should be over, right? And the enemy should get the next turn. But right now we are not handling that. After I use my item, I can still use my turn, or I can use another item or do anything I want. So let's look at how to handle that. So from the inventory UI, we need a way of notifying the battle system when an item is used. Alright, so right now the inventory UI only takes one action as the parameter, and that's on back. So here I'm going to create another action called on item used. So this will be fired whenever we use an item. So from our use item function, we have to invoke that action. So since this is a parameter, I'll have to first cache it in a private variable in order to use it here. So let me create a variable for that. So here I'll create an action called onItemUsed. Okay, and in the handle update, let's go ahead and cache that. So I'll say this dot onItemUsed equals onItemUsed. All right, so now we can invoke it once we use the item. So I'll invoke it from here. All right, so now we have to pass the onItemUsed action when calling the handle update. And by the way, I'll just make this action optional so that we don't have to pass this when we call the handle update from other places like game controller. So let's go to the battle system and pass this action. So here inside the handle update, when we call inventory UI.handle update, we also have to pass the item used action. So let me create an action for that. And let's just pass it as a parameter to the handle update. All right. So we can actually make this a bit more efficient by using events instead of passing the actions as a parameter. But I'm not going to do it right now. In the future, I'm going to refactor the battle system and use a state machine instead. So we'll do such optimizations then. For now, let's just pass these as actions. So next, let's write the code that should run when an item is used. So inside this action, first I'll just deactivate the inventory UI. So once the item is used, we should simply close the inventory UI, right? So I'll just deactivate it. And then what should we do? So when an item is used, we want to skip the player's turn and go directly to the enemy's turn, right? So I'll do this by calling the run turns function. And for the action, I'll just pass battle action dot queues item. Okay, so since this is coroutine, I'll put this inside a start coroutine function. And just to be safe, I'll just set the state to busy at the start of this action so that nothing else will happen. Okay, so now let's go inside the run turns function. So here, if the action is use item, right now we are just throwing a Pokeball. So we just did this for testing Pokeballs. So I'll just remove that. We don't need that anymore. So if the action is use item, we don't have to do anything, right? The player's turn is already over. So we can simply disable the action selector and go to the enemy's turn. All right, so inside here, we don't have to do anything, but I'll just write a comment here that says item using is handled from the item screen, and we don't have to do anything here. All right, so let's go to Unity and test this now. So let me start a battle real quick. And let me take some damage so that I can use the item. All right, so if I use the potion now, that works. And my turn is skipped, right? Once I use the item, the turn will go to the enemy Pokemon. So yeah, that's working. Let's go ahead and try that again. This time I'll use a super potion. All right, again, you can see that after using the item, the enemy gets a turn. All right, so now we can use items from battle. So I'll stop the video here, and in the next video, we'll implement the effects of all the other items. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to my channel. That'll really help me out. So I'll see you in the next video.